The sun had barely risen over the naval training base when the first echo of boots on gravel cut through the morning quiet. Recruits moved in tight formations, shoulders stiff, voices sharp, breaths controlled. The air carried the smell of salt, steel, and the familiar tension of a place designed to break the weak and refine the strong. Somewhere among the long lines of recruits, faces hardened, bodies trembling with exhaustion, stood a young woman with steady eyes and a calmness that seemed out of place in an environment built on pressure. Her name was Ava Mitchell. To most, she appeared to be nothing more than the newest recruit. Quiet, focused, polite, never speaking unless spoken to, always listening but rarely seen. She completed drills with precision but without drawing attention to herself. No one saw her stay late at night, repeating maneuvers long after the others had collapsed into their bunks. No one heard her running the obstacle course alone under dim floodlights. No one noticed the way the instructors watched her with something that wasn't quite curiosity and wasn't quite familiarity, more like respect concealed behind a professional mask. Ava had been on the base for barely 2 weeks, but word had already spread that she didn't belong there. She was too quiet, too composed, too unshakable. Some took this as confidence, others as arrogance. In a place where hierarchy mattered and new recruits were expected to prove themselves, her silence made her a target. She didn't react when pushed. She didn't flinch when insulted. She didn't respond when 3 of the most notoriously loud recruits, Tyler Briggs, Mason Cole, and Jordan Hale, decided that she needed to be put in her place. They weren't bullies in the traditional sense. They were the kind of recruits who had convinced themselves that seniority gave them authority, even when they had none. All 3 had been on base longer than Ava, and in their minds, this meant she owed them something: respect, fear, or at least a reaction. But she gave them nothing. And nothing irritated them more. It started with whispers, then comments muttered during runs, jokes thrown around the barracks, and a few physical nudges in the hallway. Ava ignored them each time, not out of fear but because she had no interest in meaningless conflict. She had come to the base for reasons far deeper than proving herself to those who would never understand her purpose. On the morning the incident happened, the sky was a pale blue, streaked with gold as the sun climbed higher. Recruits were assembled on the field for what had been announced as a stress response drill. No one knew what that meant yet, but that was the point. The unknown was part of the test. Commander Reese, the officer in charge of the drill, observed the group from a short distance. He was a large, quiet man, built like the kind of boulder that never moved even when the tide crashed against it. His presence alone kept most recruits disciplined. His reputation filled the gaps. He had trained thousands of soldiers and hundreds of special operators, and though few knew it, he had trained Ava long before she stepped foot on that field. Ava stood near the center of the formation, her expression unreadable. Her eyes scanned her surroundings with the subtle awareness of someone who knew exactly where every threat, every movement, every risk point was. She had been trained for moments far worse than this, and yet she kept her demeanor neutral. She didn't want to stand out. But fate had different plans. Mitchell, Tyler Briggs muttered as he brushed past her during the warm-up. Try not to cry today. Ava didn't respond. She didn't even look at him. Mason Cole smirked. She's ignoring you again. That's cold. Jordan Hale added. Maybe she thinks she's better than us. Ava simply shifted forward and continued stretching, her expression unchanged. She heard every word, but none of it mattered. The drill began with routine maneuvers, sprint rushes, reaction exercises, and a team-based rescue simulation. Recruits were divided into groups and instructed to complete tasks under time pressure. It was meant to test coordination and stress tolerance. For most, it was exhausting but manageable, at least until the added twist. Instructors slipped training knives into the hands of selected recruits. They weren't sharp enough to cut skin, but they carried enough sting to leave a mark and send a message. Whoever held them would act as aggressors in the scenario. The rest would have to defend themselves or evacuate the wounded. Ava's group was among the last to run the simulation, and as fate would have it, the 3 aggressors selected for her group were Tyler, Mason, and Jordan. Commander Reese had noticed. His expression didn't change, but his eyes followed Ava with an intensity that bordered on protective instinct. He didn't step in. He couldn't. The drill had rules, and sometimes the only way to reveal truth was to let things unfold. Still, he remained close, watching. The group lined up at the start point. The simulation required half the members to act as medics and half as defenders. Ava was assigned as a defender. Tyler, Mason, and Jordan grinned at each other, gripping the training knives like they were real. The signal whistle shrilled. Instantly, recruits scattered into formation. The simulated chaos began. Ava positioned herself near the center, exactly where a defender should be. She steadied her breathing and scanned the field, ready to cover the medics behind her. But instead of going after the targets they were supposed to attack, the three aggressors veered toward her, their pacing too deliberate, their eyes too sharp. "Let's see if she's still quiet after this," Tyler whispered loudly enough for her to hear as he approached. Ava didn't respond. Mason spun the training knife in his hand. "Stay still," he taunted. "You might learn something." Jordan laughed. "Or maybe we'll teach you something." Ava's stance remained neutral. No fear, no tension, only awareness. The three recruits moved in, circling her with the intention far too clear. They weren't following the drill. They weren't trying to simulate anything. They were trying to intimidate her. Ava exhaled slowly, controlled, calm. She knew exactly what was about to happen. She also knew exactly how much force she was allowed to use. She didn't want to hurt anyone, but she also wasn't going to let herself be harmed, not even in training. Tyler lunged first, the training knife aimed toward her shoulder. Ava shifted an inch, enough for the blade to pass by harmlessly. She didn't hit him. She didn't counter. She simply avoided the attack. Mason came next, sweeping the knife near her side. Ava stepped back, letting the blade slice only the fabric of her uniform, just enough for the tip to leave a faint mark. Mason grinned triumphantly, mistaking her restraint for fear. Jordan moved simultaneously, slashing at the hem of her sleeve. Another piece of fabric tore away. "Look at that," Tyler laughed. "She is scared." Ava wasn't scared. She was calculating. She could end this in a second. She could disarm them without breaking a sweat. But she wasn't the one allowed to make that decision. Commander Reese was. And he was already moving. He had seen enough. The ground trembled slightly under his steps as he crossed the field with a speed that caught everyone off guard. The instructors froze. Recruits turned their heads. Even Tyler, Mason, and Jordan hesitated when they sensed something shift in the air. Before Ava could move, before any of the aggressors could strike again, Commander Reese was beside them, silent, swift, and controlled. With one fluid motion, he grabbed Tyler's wrist and twisted it just enough to make him drop the knife. Tyler yelped in shock. Before Mason could react, Reese flicked his arm across Mason's hand, sending the second knife flying into the grass. Jordan barely realized what had happened when the commander's foot hooked his ankle, sweeping him off balance and forcing him onto one knee without injury but with total humiliation. The entire sequence lasted less than 2 seconds. No one even saw Reese draw a breath. Silence fell across the field. Tyler, Mason, and Jordan stared in disbelief, stunned, embarrassed, breathless. Commander Reese looked at Ava, not with concern, not with pity, but with the kind of respect rarely seen between instructors and recruits. Then he turned his gaze on the three shaken aggressors. "Recruits," he said in a calm, even voice, "you had one job. And you failed it spectacularly." Tyler swallowed hard. Mason looked away. Jordan clenched his jaw. "This drill was designed to test teamwork, discipline, and controlled engagement," Reese continued. "You ignored every rule. You targeted your own teammate. You put ego above mission." He stepped closer to them. "But the biggest mistake you made today wasn't breaking protocol. It was choosing the wrong person to target." His voice dropped an octave. "You think Ava Mitchell is just another recruit." The trio didn't answer. "She has more training than every person on this field combined," Reese said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "She is not here because she needs to learn from you. She is here because she was assigned to observe this program, and to determine which of you deserves to remain." A collective gasp rippled across the recruits. Ava remained still, expression steady, revealing nothing. Reese gestured toward her. "Ava Mitchell is a specialist brought in under direct order of Naval Command. Her combat evaluation scores rank in the top 1% of the entire Special Operations system. She's completed advanced courses some of you can't even qualify for. And she's been operating under a low-profile directive since the day she arrived." Tyler's face drained of color. Mason stared at Ava like seeing her for the first time. Jordan's breathing hitched. And you, Reese finished sharply, decided to teach her a lesson. The silence after that was suffocating. Reese turned to face the rest of the recruits. Let this be a reminder. Strength is not loud. Discipline is not arrogant. Respect is earned through action, not intimidation. He paused. And some of you, he said, looking back at the trio, have earned something today. But it isn't respect. He motioned for an instructor. Remove these 3 from the drill. Effective immediately. Their future in this program will be reviewed. The 3 recruits were escorted away, heads lowered, steps heavy with regret. Ava watched quietly, neither gloating nor smirking. She wasn't glad to see them fail. She had hoped they would learn discipline before it came to this. But she also knew some lessons had to be earned the hard way. Commander Reese approached her once the field cleared. You handled yourself perfectly, he said quietly. Her expression softened. You trained me well. He nodded, his stern demeanor warming for just a moment. Ready to continue. Always. Reese turned to the stunned formation. Back to positions. The drill isn't over. But something had changed. The recruits didn't just move. They moved with newfound energy, focus, and respect. They looked at Ava differently, not with fear but with admiration. For the first time, since arriving on the base, she felt the atmosphere shift. A quiet strength carried through the air. A sense of unity that hadn't been there before. Throughout the rest of the drill, Ava remained calm, composed, and steady, guiding her teammates without ever ordering them. They followed her naturally. Her quiet leadership inspired them more than any shouting ever could. When the session finally ended hours later, sweat clung to every recruit, shirts soaked, muscles burning. Yet the team felt accomplished in a way they hadn't before. Several recruits approached Ava, not in fear, but in respect. You okay? One asked. Thanks for not letting them get to you, another added. You were incredible out there, a third said. Ava offered a small smile, the kind that carried warmth without demanding attention. We're a team, she replied simply. We look out for each other. Those words stuck with them long after they left the field. That evening, when the sun dipped low and painted the base in soft amber light, Ava walked toward the training docks. The sky reflected off the water like molten gold. She leaned against the railing and closed her eyes, letting the breeze brush against her face. Footsteps approached behind her. Commander Reese stopped at her side. You handled today better than most operators would. Ava exhaled slowly. I didn't want them to get in trouble. They got themselves in trouble, Reese corrected. You kept them from getting hurt. That's the difference. A few moments passed in comfortable quiet before Reese continued. You know, when Naval Command asked me to choose someone to evaluate the next wave of recruits, your name was the only one I wrote down. Ava looked at him. I won't let you down. You haven't yet, he said. And after today, you won't just inspire the recruits. You'll change the culture here. Ava watched the water ripple gently in the fading light. They're good people. They just need direction. That's why you're here, he replied. Not as a recruit, not as an observer, but as the kind of soldier this place needs. Ava's reflection shimmered on the surface, her eyes steady with purpose. Then I'll give them everything I can. Reese turned to leave but paused. Ava, he said softly, I'm proud of you. She nodded. Thank you, sir. When he walked away, Ava remained at the edge of the dock, watching the horizon fade into night. She thought of the drill, the confrontation, the reactions, and the moment everything changed. Not because of power, or fear, or exposure, but because someone finally saw who she truly was, and because an entire team now looked to her as a source of strength. On that quiet night, under the vast open sky, Ava Mitchell made a silent promise to herself. No matter what challenges came next, no matter how difficult the path ahead, she would lead with discipline, strength, and heart. And she would make sure every recruit under her watch learned that the true measure of a soldier wasn't in intimidation or ego, but in integrity, unity, and respect. It was the beginning of a new chapter for the base. A fresh direction, a stronger foundation, and it all started with one moment, one decision, one reveal. A moment that ended careers. A moment that inspired many more. A moment born out of calm strength, earned respect, and unwavering resolve. Ava Mitchell walked back toward the lights of the base, her steps quiet but certain. She wasn't just another recruit anymore. She was their example, their reminder, their turning point, and she was just getting started. If you want to see even better stories like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, leave a comment, and press the bell icon for more updates.